Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're jumping straight into something just endlessly fascinating, the human mind itself.
Yeah, it's the ultimate puzzle, isn't it? Why we do what we do.
Exactly. Are we really driving the bus, or are we maybe more like these incredibly complex machines running on, hidden programs?
Well, that's what we're digging into. Our mission today is basically to give you a shortcut, peel back some layers on why we think, feel, and act the way we do.
And make it really engaging, not just dry facts. We want this deep dive to be, well, genuinely well explained.
Definitely. And we're standing on the shoulders of giants here. We've pulled insights from three really monumental books. Each gives us a different, powerful lens.
That's right. We've got Daniel Kahneman's Nobel-winning Thinking Fast and Slow, essential stuff.
Then Robert Cialdini's Influence, the classic on persuasion.
And Robert Sapolsky's huge, amazing work, Behave, the biology of humans at our best and worst. It's sprawling.
These aren't just books. They're more like roadmaps,
Mhm.
helping us decode the brilliance and, yeah, sometimes the chaos inside our own heads.
Our goal is to hand you the core ideas, the real aha moments from these, without you having to wade through, hundreds and hundreds of pages.
You should walk away feeling like you've got a real handle on this, with insights you can actually use. Think of it as a new way to look at your own mental landscape.
Okay, so let's get into it. First up, Daniel Kahneman and Thinking Fast and Slow. This book really changed the game for understanding decisions.
Oh, absolutely. And the foundation really is his idea of two different systems operating in our minds, System 1 and System 2.
Right. Understanding these two is kind of the key, isn't it? And it's not always obvious how they work.
Not at all. System 1.
Yeah.
That's a fast one. It's intuitive, emotional, makes snap judgments. It's mostly running subconsciously.
Like someone smiles at you on the street and you just smile back. You don't think about it.
Exactly. It just happens. System 1 is behind that. Super efficient, always scanning, making quick calls based on patterns it's learned.
Which we need, right? To just get through the day without analyzing every single tiny thing.
Totally. But, and this is the big but, that speed comes at a cost. It's full of biases, built-in shortcuts that can lead us wrong.
Okay, so that's system 1. Quick and dirty, sometimes flawed. What about system 2?
System 2 is the opposite. It's slow, deliberate, logical. This is the part you engage when you're like working through a tough math problem or carefully weighing pros and cons for a big decision.
The one that takes actual effort. You can feel it working.
Yeah, it requires attention, concentration. So the really humbling thing Kahneman points out is how often System 1 is actually in charge, even when we think we're being rational.
Which leads to his big insight that what you see is all there is idea. Can you unpack that a bit?
Sure. It means our System 1 loves to create a coherent story out of whatever information is immediately available, even if it's incomplete or biased. It just fills in the gaps.
And it does this so quickly and confidently, we often don't even question it. We fall for these cognitive illusions.
Exactly. Things like the halo effect. Liking one thing about someone, suddenly thinking everything about them is great.
Or availability bias, if you hear about plane crashes a lot. You start thinking flying is riskier than it statistically is, just because those stories are easy to recall.
Right. And anchoring is a huge one, too. That first piece of information really sticks.
Okay, give us a concrete example of anchoring, maybe.
Well, think about shopping. You see a jacket, maybe original price tag says $500. Now it's marked down to $250.
Okay, yeah. System 1 immediately goes, wow, 50% off. Great deal.
Precisely. It anchors onto that $500 figure. Your System 1 doesn't automatically stop and ask, was this jacket ever actually worth $500 in the first place?
No, it just sees the discount relative to that first number and feels like a win. System 2 could analyze that, but it often doesn't unless you consciously push it to.
And that's the core lesson. Knowing these biases exist is one thing. The real skill is learning to recognize when your fast, confident System 1 might be wrong, and deliberately engaging that slower, more effortful System 2, especially when it feels inconvenient.
So, for you listening, think about it. Where might these two minds be playing out in your life? Just knowing they exist. That can bring a new level of self-awareness, right?
Absolutely, and that self-awareness is the perfect bridge to our next thinker. If Kahneman shows how our own minds work internally,
then Robert Cialdini shows how those internal workings can be influenced from the outside. Let's talk about influence, the psychology of persuasion.
yeah, Cialdini basically went undercover, you could say. He spent years studying professional persuaders, salespeople, marketers, fundraisers, to see what actually works.
And he boiled it down to 6 key principles, universal psychological triggers.
That's it. And once you know them, you see them everywhere.
Okay, let's run through them quickly. First is reciprocity. that urge to give back when someone gives you something.
Like free samples. Then there's commitment and consistency. We want to stick to things we've already said or done.
Right. Makes sense. Then social proof, looking to others to see what's right or popular.
Especially when we're uncertain. If everyone else is doing it, now must be okay, right? That's the thinking.
Okay, what's next?
Authority. We tend to obey figures we see as experts or having authority. The lab coat effect.
Gotcha. And liking. Pretty straightforward. We say yes more easily to people we like.
People who are like us, who pay us compliments, yeah. And finally, scarcity. Things seem more valuable when they're limited or hard to get.
Ah, the limited time offer. Or only 2 seats left at this price. That one gets me sometimes.
It gets most of us. Or think about influencers online subtly mentioning, everyone's buying this right now. That's tapping into social proof, and it may be scarcity too.
It's not magic. Like you said, it's psychology applied really effectively.
Exactly. These principles leverage deep-seated human tendencies. The big takeaway from Cialdini isn't necessarily how to use these yourself, although you could, but it's about recognizing when they're being used on you.
So you can make a more conscious choice, not just react automatically.
Precisely. It empowers you to be a wiser decision maker, not just easily swayed.
So again, for you listening, think about where these principles might have popped up for you recently. Recognizing them is the first step to maybe navigating them differently next time.
Okay, so we've looked inside the mind with Kahneman and at external influence with Cialdini. Now let's zoom out and also kind of zoom way in with Robert Sapolsky.
Right, with Behave, the biology of humans at our best and worst. This book is just immense. It's like a biological map for behavior.
It really is. Sapolsky takes this incredibly layered approach. He asks, why did a particular behavior happen? And he looks at it across time.
Starting like a second before the action?
Yeah. What neurons fired, what neurotransmitters were released, what hormones were surging right then, the immediate biological mechanic.
But then he pulls back. What about hours before?
Right. Were your stress levels high or low? What was your blood sugar doing? Things that prime your brain and body to react in certain ways.
And then even further back, days, months, years.
Exactly. How did your childhood experiences shape you? Your culture, any trauma you've experienced. These things sculpt our brains and responses over time, often silently.
Wow. And he goes even further, doesn't he? Back to genes, evolution.
Millennia. He looks at how genes might predispose us to certain tendencies, how evolutionary pressures shaped our species, how deep history and culture formed the very operating system we run on.
It's this incredible cascade from evolution down to the split second before you act. It really makes you question that idea of free will.
Well, Sapolsky's take, and it's a really nuanced one, is basically free will exists, but it's complicated. It's not this simple on-off switch we might imagine.
He uses that example of getting cut off in traffic, right? Your reaction isn't just about that moment.
Not at all. It's about your cortisol levels right then, which are influenced by the stress you had this morning, which connects back to how you learned to handle stress in childhood, maybe influenced by your genes, and even what you had for breakfast.
Goodness. So that flash of anger or maybe patient acceptance is the end result of, well, everything that came before.
Pretty much. It's a humbling perspective. And the huge lesson from Sapolsky, I think, is about holding both accountability and compassion.
How do you mean?
Well, understanding the deep biological and historical roots of behavior doesn't mean people aren't responsible for their actions. But it does encourage us to maybe replace instant judgment with a bit more curiosity.
Instead of just blame, maybe ask, why? What led to this?
Exactly. Looking beyond the surface action to the incredibly complex web of factors behind it.
It definitely makes you think differently about your own reactions, especially the ones that surprise you, and maybe gives you more empathy for why others act the way they do.
Yeah, knowing that their behavior, just like yours, is this result of an intricate, layered history.
Okay, so let's try to bring this all together. We've covered Kahneman, Cialdini, Sapolsky, 3 massive perspectives on the mind.
What's the thread connecting them all?
Well, Kahneman teaches us to be wary of our gut feelings, right? To slow down, question that fast system 1 because it's often biased.
Then Cialdini shows us how those very psychological tendencies are used, deliberately or not, to influence our choices. He makes us aware of the invisible strings.
And Sapolsky gives us the deep context. Behavior isn't simple. It's this profound mix of biology, psychology, environment, history, everything interacting.
So putting it all together, what's the big realization?
I think it's that the more we genuinely understand how our minds work, the shortcuts, the influences, the deep biological roots, the more capacity we build for empathy.
Empathy not just for other people.
But for ourselves too, right? For our own inconsistencies, our own seemingly irrational moments, understanding the why fosters compassion.
That's a powerful takeaway. The deeper the understanding, the greater the potential for empathy.
So here's something to maybe, mull over after listening. How might seeing yourself and the people around you through this richer, more complex, maybe more compassionate lens, how might that actually change things for you?
Yeah. What happens when you start to appreciate the immense layered complexity behind every single human action? Something to think about.